There are few brands on Earth as recognizable as McDonald's. The Golden Arches can be found in some of the most famous cities in the world. You can eat fries under the Northern Lights. You can order a McFlurry in the middle of the desert. You can even find a McDonald's only a short distance from the Vatican. With more than 40,000 restaurants around the world, McDonald's has become one of the clearest symbols of globalization. It is a company built around a simple idea. The food should be fast. The experience should be familiar. And wherever you are in the world, a Big Mac should feel like the same Big Mac. But there is one huge part of the world where the Golden Arches are surprisingly difficult to find: Africa. The continent is home to almost 1/5 of the world's population. It has some of the world's fastest-growing cities, expanding economies, and a young population. And yet McDonald's has a presence in only a handful of African countries. That raises a simple question: why? It is not because American fast food never reached Africa. KFC is there, Pizza Hut is there, Burger King is there. So why has McDonald's struggled to spread across the continent? The answer takes us through political corruption, difficult supply chains, extreme weather, potatoes, power cuts, and one of the most important lessons in global business. Sometimes, being the same everywhere can become a weakness. McDonald's actually had a promising beginning in Africa. In 1992, the company opened its first restaurant on the continent, in Morocco. The timing seemed perfect. By the 1990s, McDonald's had already become one of the world's most powerful restaurant chains. The so-called Burger Wars had already been fought for years. McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's had competed aggressively for customers, especially in the United States. But by the time the competition became truly global, McDonald's had pulled far ahead. During the middle of the 1990s, the company was operating in around 100 countries. It claimed to be opening a new restaurant somewhere in the world every 3 hours. Fast food had become one of the purest symbols of globalization. And Africa looked like the next major frontier. When McDonald's arrived in Morocco, people were curious. At the time, a full meal cost around 50 dirhams, or about $6.25. That was expensive compared with the local minimum wage, but people still came. For many Moroccans, McDonald's was something they had mostly seen in movies. Now, they could finally experience it for themselves. And the location helped. Some restaurants were close to beaches and other popular areas. The restaurant was not simply selling burgers, it was selling an experience. Today, McDonald's has many locations across Morocco, and the company learned an important lesson there. If you want to succeed in another country, you cannot simply copy and paste the American model. You have to adapt. A local visitor explains that McDonald's in Morocco is not only a place to eat. Families come there to spend time together. Some people even study there. The restaurant looks familiar. The arches are familiar. The basic menu is familiar. But there are important differences. The meat is halal. And during Ramadan, McDonald's offers food designed around local customs. This is part of a strategy often called glocalization. The basic brand stays the same, but parts of the product are changed to fit local culture. It is a powerful strategy, and in Morocco, it worked. McDonald's also became a source of employment, especially for young people. The company did not only create jobs inside restaurants, it also created work through the wider supply chain. So after finding success in Morocco, McDonald's looked toward other African markets. In the mid-1990s, South Africa was going through a historic transformation. Apartheid had ended. The country was entering a new political era, and McDonald's saw an opportunity. In 1995, the company opened its first restaurant in Johannesburg. It was the first McDonald's south of the Sahara, but the real expansion came later. In 2011, McDonald's sold its South African franchise rights to Cyril Ramaphosa, a businessman who would later become president of South Africa. Under his leadership, the business expanded significantly. By 2025, South Africa had more than 400 McDonald's restaurants. The company had also expanded into Egypt and Mauritius. And then something strange happened. It stopped. 4 countries, that was it. For a company that had restaurants in more than 100 countries, Africa remained surprisingly difficult. And this is where the story becomes much more complicated because the problem was not simply a lack of customers. Africa had plenty of potential customers. The real problem was getting the McDonald's system to work, and that system was built on something the company takes very seriously: consistency. Imagine ordering fries in Germany, then imagine ordering the same fries in Japan, then imagine ordering them in the United States. McDonald's wants you to have almost the same experience every time. Crispy outside, soft inside, golden, uniform, predictable. That reliability is one of the company's greatest strengths, but it also creates a huge challenge. Because behind every simple order of fries is a complicated global supply chain. McDonald's has strict rules covering food sourcing, packaging, transportation, storage, restaurant operations, hygiene, and cooking. Ingredients have to meet exact specifications. Recipes have to be followed carefully. And even something as simple as a potato has to meet very specific requirements. Take the potato. McDonald's prefers certain varieties, including russet Burbank and other approved types. These potatoes are chosen because they produce the kind of fries the company wants. Long, straight, crispy on the outside, soft on the inside. The potatoes must also be grown according to strict standards. Farmers in the supply chain have to follow specific requirements. The goal is simple. The fries should taste the same wherever they are served. In countries such as Germany, McDonald's can source most of its potatoes locally. But across much of Africa, the exact potato varieties the company wants are not grown at the scale it needs. That creates a problem. If the right potatoes are not available locally, they have to be transported from somewhere else. And transporting food over long distances creates risk. We can see the problem clearly in Kenya. In 2022, KFC, which is much more widely established across Africa, faced a potato shortage. Its potatoes were being shipped from Egypt. But container ships were delayed. The potatoes did not arrive on time. And suddenly, KFC ran out of fries. The company refused to replace them with local potatoes. Many customers were angry. But the problem was not necessarily that Kenyan potatoes were bad. The problem was that the potatoes being grown by many Kenyan farmers were not the exact type needed to produce KFC's preferred fries. One major variety grown by Kenyan farmers is called shangi. It did not meet the chain's requirements. And this is important because Kenya is a major potato-producing country. Potatoes are one of the country's most important staple foods. So the problem was not a lack of potatoes. It was a mismatch between local agriculture and the strict requirements of a global fast food chain. For McDonald's, this problem can become even bigger because the company has to maintain consistency across its entire operation. And potatoes are only one part of the story. The bigger challenge is the cold chain. A cold chain is a temperature-controlled supply system. Its job is to keep products at the correct temperature from the moment they leave a supplier until they reach the restaurant. For a company like McDonald's, this is critical. Meat and other ingredients must remain within strict temperature ranges. Trucks need refrigeration. Storage facilities need reliable cooling. Temperatures need to be monitored. And if something goes wrong, the entire system can be affected. Now consider a country like Nigeria. Nigeria has a population of more than 230 million people. It is one of Africa's largest economies. It already has major international fast food brands. KFC is there, Domino's is there, Burger King is there. On paper, Nigeria looks like exactly the kind of country McDonald's should want to enter. But there is a major problem. Infrastructure. Lagos is hot. Temperatures can reach around 34 degrees Celsius. power cuts can be frequent. And when electricity disappears, refrigeration becomes a serious problem. Frozen burger patties cannot simply sit in a hot environment. They can thaw within hours. That can turn a supply problem into a food safety problem. Then there is transportation. Nigeria is a huge country. Moving food across it can mean traveling through rivers, forests, savannas, flooded areas, and drought-affected regions. Some roads are difficult to use. Heavy traffic can create delays. Poor road conditions can make transportation even slower. And every extra hour matters when the food must remain cold. For an ordinary restaurant, a difficult supply chain is a problem. For McDonald's, it can be a deal breaker, because McDonald's is not simply opening a restaurant. It is building an entire system around that restaurant. Suppliers, farmers, warehouses, refrigerated trucks, distribution centers, quality controls, workers, equipment, and restaurants. If one major part of that system is missing, the whole model becomes harder to operate. This helps explain why McDonald's has been much slower to expand across Africa than some competitors. But there is another important question. If the supply chain is so difficult, how did KFC manage to spread across more than 25 African countries? The answer brings us to the third part of the story: chicken. There is one major difference between McDonald's and KFC. One is built around burgers, the other is built around chicken. And in Africa, that difference matters. Chicken is widely consumed across the continent. Compared with beef, chicken is often cheaper and easier to access. It also has a shorter production cycle and can cost less to produce. That gives KFC an important advantage. But there is something even more important. KFC can source much of its chicken locally. Instead of depending heavily on long-distance imports, KFC can work with local suppliers. That means shorter supply lines, fewer imported products, lower transportation costs, and fewer opportunities for a shipment to become stuck somewhere along the way. This does not remove every problem. KFC has faced supply problems too. The potato shortage in Kenya proved that, but its main product gives it more flexibility. And KFC has also shown another important strength. It adapts. In Ghana, for example, KFC serves jollof rice, a popular West African dish. This is another example of globalization. The international brand stays recognizable, but the menu changes to fit the local market. McDonald's has also used this strategy successfully. Its Moroccan restaurants offer halal food. Its Ramadan menu reflects local traditions. The basic McDonald's identity remains, but the food changes. The challenge is that McDonald's still depends heavily on a much larger and more complex supply system. And this is where the company's greatest strength becomes one of its greatest obstacles. McDonald's has spent decades creating a system where customers know what to expect. The burger should taste familiar. The fries should look familiar. The restaurant should feel familiar. The process should be predictable. That consistency helped McDonald's become one of the world's most successful companies. But Africa presents situations where consistency can be expensive. Sometimes the right potato is not grown locally. Sometimes the right supplier does not exist. Sometimes the roads are unreliable. Sometimes electricity is unstable. Sometimes a shipment is delayed. Sometimes the political environment changes. And sometimes the company simply cannot find a local partner it trusts. Tunisia provides a very different example. In the 1990s, McDonald's spent years trying to enter the country. The company carried out market research. It worked on licenses. It established supply chains. It found a local franchise partner. The process took around 7 years. But eventually, the deal collapsed. The ruling family wanted the franchise for themselves. McDonald's refused, and the company walked away. Years later, another opportunity appeared. But then Tunisia experienced something much bigger than a business dispute. In December 2010, a young street vendor set himself on fire in an act of protest. His death helped spark widespread demonstrations. The protests grew. The government was challenged. And eventually, President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali was removed from power during the Arab Spring. The ruling family fled the country. Political instability followed, and the economy struggled. McDonald's never opened a restaurant there. The story shows that entering a new market is not only about finding customers. Politics matters, infrastructure matters, local partnerships matter, and timing matters. So, where does that leave McDonald's? The company clearly sees Africa as an important opportunity. The continent has huge populations. Many economies are growing. Middle classes are expanding. And millions of young people are entering the workforce and becoming consumers. The potential is enormous. But potential is not the same thing as practicality. A restaurant can be popular with customers and still be difficult to operate. A country can have a huge population and still lack the infrastructure needed for McDonald's system. A market can be wealthy enough for burgers, but not yet have the supply chain needed to deliver those burgers consistently. That is why McDonald's may need to expand carefully. Instead of immediately trying to conquer the biggest markets, it may focus first on smaller countries where supply chains are easier to control. It is a slower strategy, but it may also be a safer one. Still, there is another possibility. McDonald's itself is changing. As beef becomes more expensive in some markets, the company has been moving toward more chicken-based products. If chicken becomes a larger part of McDonald's menu, the company may be able to take advantage of the same supply chain strengths that have helped KFC expand. But exactly how much this will influence McDonald's future African expansion is unclear. The transcript does not establish a specific expansion plan based on chicken. What we can say is that the strategy makes business sense. McDonald's has always been very good at adapting its products to local markets, and that ability may eventually help the company overcome some of the barriers that have slowed it down. There is something almost strange about the way we think about McDonald's. The brand can feel inevitable. As countries become richer, we often expect them to attract the same global brands, the same restaurants, the same products, the same styles. But Africa shows that globalization does not always happen in a straight line. A powerful company cannot simply decide to enter a country and expect everything to work. It needs farmers, it needs roads, it needs electricity, it needs refrigeration, it needs reliable suppliers, it needs trusted partners, and sometimes it needs the right potato. McDonald's succeeded around the world because it learned how to make billions of people feel that they were buying the same product. But Africa presents a different challenge. Here, the company must find a way to keep its famous consistency while dealing with very different local realities. Morocco showed that adaptation can work. South Africa showed how powerful the franchise model can become. Tunisia showed how politics can stop a global company in its tracks. Kenya showed how something as simple as a potato can expose the weaknesses of an international supply chain. And Nigeria shows just how difficult it can be to build a reliable cold chain in a large, hot, rapidly growing country. So the mystery is not really why McDonald's is absent from much of Africa. The bigger mystery is whether the company can eventually change enough to make its model work there. Because McDonald's has never been afraid of expansion. For decades, it has kept moving into new countries, new cities, and new markets. Africa may simply be one of the hardest frontiers it has ever faced, and the story is not over. The Golden Arches may be rare today, but that does not mean they will remain rare forever. Change can happen slowly, and then sometimes it happens all at once. For now, much of Africa remains one of the few places where the world's most recognizable fast food brand has yet to fully arrive. And perhaps that is what makes the story so interesting, because sometimes the hardest market to conquer is not the one with the fewest customers. It is the one where your entire system has to change before you can serve them.